Let's bring the congressman in right now. Congressman Kinzinger, very good to have you with us. We'll let you talk to other people about your past. I'm curious about the future. You have actually steadfastly supported a no-fly zone. Obviously, many people say that would be a trigger for war. I'm wondering, do you still support that no-fly zone? And if the United States can't go that far, what's the next best thing for us to do?
Well, hey, guys, I do support it. Now, I want to be clear. Every day that goes by, it becomes a more difficult thing to do as more Russian equipment comes in. I just worry, and I believe that we're going to end up in a point where we have to basically go toe-to-toe to some version with Russia anyway. Russia is the one. Let's be clear. They're the ones escalating this fight. It's not the United States. I know we're paralyzed with fear that anything we do will be provocative and escalatory. It is Russia that's doing that. Now, short of a no-fly zone or a version of it, Western Ukraine, just humanitarian, whatever, I think medium-range missile defense systems, anti-ship missile systems. This is something I don't understand why Ukraine doesn't have as Russia shuts down the Black Sea. So I think it's important to continue to provide those weapons, training to the extent we can, particularly in Western Ukraine or Romania. And I'll tell you guys, I think the thing we can do that would actually do the most stuff right now would be to quit saying what we will not do. Okay, if you have no intention of putting troops on the ground in Ukraine, fine. You don't have to say it every 10 minutes because all that does is give Vladimir Putin a target he can walk up to.
Yeah, not just that, Mika, but again, I understand why Joe Biden has done it over the past 3 weeks because, again, he had a reluctant American public and he had reluctant allies in Europe. That's not the case anymore. We don't have to keep telling Putin what we're not going to do. In fact, it works against America and Ukraine's best interest for us to continue to do it. The first phase of the war went extremely well. We're now in a new phase.
He did have to explain our position.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people are still wondering why can't we stop this slaughter that we're watching before our eyes on social media. I mean, it is really a very visceral experience for the American people, this war with Ukraine. So, Congressman, what off-ramps do you envision that actually wouldn't have us going toe-to-toe with Putin? Are there any?
Yeah, look, I mean, if this continues to escalate again, I think it's clear that if Russia decides to attack these aid convoys, that would be pretty much an attack on NATO, an Article 5 point. So I think we have to be very, very clear that this may lead to escalation. But to all the former kind of cold warriors that, are academics, Russia is not the old Soviet Union. I mean, in the Soviet Union, we could not tangle with them because they were our match and we would destroy each other. I get it. Russia has nuclear weapons. I don't think Russia intends to destroy the world either. So I think keep that in mind. But again, up to the point, it's continuing to provide aid, medium-range missile defense, I think anti-shipping weapons, training, et cetera, to give Ukraine what they need to defend their territory is going to be important. Secondarily, let me just say quickly, there are Russian interests everywhere. Russia is in Syria. Russia is obviously all over South America. They're in Libya. Why are we not expanding a proxy war against some of their interests in other areas if they intend to, attack our allies as well?
So, Congressman, let me ask you that question. Of course, people look at many things that Donald Trump did. I think on the foreign policy stage, one of the worst things he did was take our 2,500, 3,000 troops out of Syria that were effectively holding back Russians, Iranians, the Turks, the Syrians, and destroying ISIS. And in fact, the one time Russian mercenaries came at us, we killed about 300 of them in about 5 minutes. We were helping our Kurdish allies. And so when I hear the announcement that Syrians are going to come fight in Ukraine, when I see stories about Iranians firing missiles at Israeli positions where Americans are, I'm just wondering, why wouldn't we send those 2,500 troops that believed they were doing great things there inside of Syria? Why don't we send them back to Syria and they can help create that safe zone instead of doing what Donald Trump did? Again, talking about Donald Trump, turning over a Middle Eastern country to Russia for the first time since 1973. That would be us being disruptive, wouldn't it?
That's right. And that's how you have to think. Like, we're in a moment where there's no risk-free choices anymore. We have to think outside the box. You don't want to directly confront Russia. There is a way to do that. And I think there's plenty of options. I think even Alexander Vindman has talked a lot about UAVs, giving unmanned aerial vehicles, as the Turkish ones have done so well. But yes, look, Donald Trump, I was in the Oval Office and told him, Mr. President, if you pull these troops out of Syria, you're going to lose a seat at the negotiating table. He told me, he goes, who cares? Who cares about Syria? I was blown away. And that's what people that go around and say none of this would happen under Donald Trump. It is a very convenient forgetting of how awful he was at foreign policy and his complete love towards, authoritarian people. Look, if you think President Biden is being weak on this, say it, right? I think there's certain things he's certainly being weak on. But let's not try to whitewash who Donald Trump was. Donald Trump empowered Vladimir Putin. Let's be very clear about that.
Congressman Adam